On this episode of Locked On Angels, our Halo said they want to compete for a playoff spot, but after this weekend, they turned me into the Ron Burgundy meme. You know, the one that says, I don't believe you. That's just it's how I feel right now. You can't win a series against the Nationals. I'm sorry, Halos. I don't believe you. You're not serious. And we've got takeaways from this weekend. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. One of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins.
Happy Monday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
You know, Mike and I have been lifelong fans of this team. Mike, way longer than me, just because he's the older brother. No. We've been lifelong fans of this team, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to be talking Angels baseball with you Monday through Friday, every single weekday, 5 days a week, however you want to slice it. On today's show, we're recapping the weekend and giving you our takeaways from this series against the Nationals. Should have been an easy one. Should have been 2 out of 3. Could have been 2 out of 3, Mike. Unfortunately, the Angels were not able to walk away with more than just one win, and it all began on Friday in a 15-9 loss. But it began with Jose Soriano laying an egg, didn't he?
Yeah, that's our first takeaway from Friday's game. John, his last 3 starts, he's been great. He's gone at least 6 2/3 in each of those starts against the A's, the Yanks, and the Astros. Johnny just gave up 1 earned run in each of those starts, 0 earned runs against the Yanks, struck out 12 against the A's, 10 against the Astros. But then Friday night, the powerhouse, the juggernaut that is the Washington Nationals, he just wasn't good. 4 innings, 9 hits, 8 earned runs, 2 walks, and 4 Ks. Every pitch, John, was 1 to 2 miles an hour slower than it has been in the previous starts, except for his splitter. His splitter was 2 mile an hour faster in this start, which I think caused him to leave it kind of in the middle part of the plate. He did leave a lot of his pitches up, and the Nationals, credit to them, they did not miss his pitches, and he just could not limit the damage. And he couldn't get out of jams. He just couldn't get a strikeout when he needed it. He couldn't get a pop out when he needed it. If there were base runners on base, he was in a whole lot of trouble. And that was his 4 innings were just a mess. And it was so surprising because he had been so good in the last 3 starts.
Mike, it's not uncommon for Jose Soriano to have a game that just doesn't go his way, right? Every now and then he'll have one. You can kind of tell from the first at bat what kind of game it's going to be. But here's something I think we need to pay attention to. You mentioned the velocity was a little bit down in this one. Last year, he hit 113 innings pitched before the injury took him out for the remainder of the season. Mike, this year, he's up to 97 already. And so he had, 20 starts last year in 22 games. He's up to 17 starts this year, and that's all he's done. He hasn't done any relief pitching like he did a couple games last year. Mike, I think that's something we need to pay attention to as we move forward with Jose Soriano, is just what's the longevity, as this guy really hasn't had a full season of starting. That's probably something that we need to keep an eye on to see if the velocity does come back, or he does get tired, or, he is dealing with the stress of being a starter throughout the year. So again, he's probably 1 to I guess it would be about 2 starts before he reached his limit from last year before he got hurt. So that's something I think we ought to be looking out for with Jose Soriano.
Second takeaway is the Angels needed a hero in the bullpen, and they just didn't get one. I need a hero, right? I need somebody. Somebody couldn't step up, right? They let 3 guys with batting averages of 200 or under beat them. Bell, Lyle, and Adams had 5 combined hits and 5 RBIs. Every bullpen guy gave up a run except for Brock Burke on Friday night. That included 4 runs in the top of the 9th, which just put the game out of reach. That's where everything fell apart for the Halos. Every time the Halos put runs on the board in this game or took the lead, the Nationals responded with runs of their own. No shutdown innings, and I'm the king of shutdown innings. I love talking about that. John, the bullpen, 10 hits, 7 runs, 4 walks, 4 Ks. Angels pitching allowed 1 run in the 7th and the 8th and the 9th innings, at least 1 run. Like, they just kept giving up runs after runs after runs. And the Nationals bullpen, they didn't give up any runs. They were solid. Their starters struggled, but they were solid. Angels pitching, they allowed 3 leadoff walks in this game. Guess what? They all came around to score. So a really pathetic performance, especially with a day off just before that, and they're going to get another day off today. And so it just was a pathetic performance. And it just felt like our hitters as well, like they were really trying to come through for our pitching staff, but just couldn't do that. And then when the pitching staff gave up all the runs, then our hitters who were hitting well in this game, they forgot how to hit well, because the 9th inning game, right, bottom of the 9th inning, they swung at everything. They swung at every pitch that was thrown. Adele lines out on a pitch that was down and away, not a good swing, not a good pitch to try to hit. Ohapi swung at 3 pitches that were nowhere near the zone. And then Lamontway Jr. swung at the first pitch, and he flew out. So they were great offensively in this game. But then the 9th inning, you just felt like they had a whole lot of pressure on themselves to try to come back, right? Especially after a 4-1 top or a 4-run top of the 9th. They swung at everything and looked pathetic and just matched the patheticness of the bullpen in this game.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is, Mike, and that leads into our third takeaway. Blaming the offense for this loss is really hard to do when they scored 9 runs on 11 hits.
Yeah.
That's a game that wins every time, right? Except for this one where, pitching just did not have it. I don't know, did they drink something before the game? Like, they're sharing the same water cooler. There's something in there. And so all that to say, it is on rare occasion that the Angels have lost a game because the pitching has just been terrible, right? And they can't back up their pitching. They can't muster up the runs to give them some run support. Not in this one. 9 runs and 11 hits should have got the job done. Rengifo, Shawnuel, Adele, Ohapi each had 2 hits in this one. Shawnuel hit his 7th home run in this game. Adele hit his 18th home run, his 11th in June. Taylor Ward hits his 20th home run, 6 walks and 7 strikeouts. I even, I looked at the box score after the game was over and I was like, 6 walks? Like, good grief. Like, that's great for this team, right? And only 7 Ks, but they were 3 for 14 with runners in scoring position. They had runners on in almost every inning, but couldn't take advantage. Bottom of the 7th, 2 on with no outs and didn't score. Bottom of the 6th, a runner on third with less than 2 outs, didn't score. Bottom of the 5th, they did score in this inning, but they had runners at first and third with less than 2 outs. Didn't take advantage of that either. So despite the 9 runs and 11 hits, you had a lot more opportunities to win the game, and you just couldn't take advantage of it. And that's something that feels like is the Angels' kryptonite this season.
Fourth takeaway was that Ron Washington is going to remain on medical leave for the rest of the season. Now, they haven't given specifics. It's kind of unclear as to what's going on, but Perry Manassian said he talked to him 3 times on Friday, said Wash is in good spirits. The health news is fortunate, so he's on the road to recovery. Perry said Wash knows what he needs to do, and from a health standpoint, he's got to get better. He said, in my opinion, the game is 1,000 times better with Ron Washington a part of it on a daily basis. Of course, Ray Montgomery is going to manage this team for the rest of the season. Ryan Goings is going to be his bench coach. And Perry said no additional additions will be made to the coaching staff. John, there's a lot of conversation that we're going to have next segment and in the final segment about Ray Montgomery and how he managed the starting rotation, made a decision that I questioned, and then made another decision that I didn't question. But it was interesting how he managed the offense this weekend as well. He's a very analytic guy, and you saw that show up even more than he had in he's going to be here for a bit. Well, Ron gets better. Now he's got the team for the rest of the year. And I felt like what shifted this weekend is Ray was like, well, then I'm going to coach the way that I believe is the best way to coach. That's what I felt really changed this weekend. Now, if Ron was at the helm and it wasn't Ray, would the Angels still have lost 2 out of 3? Probably, because their pitching really was terrible in this game. But there were some decisions that I think maybe Ron would have made in Sunday's game that Ray did not make. And we'll get to that in our final segment. But this is an interesting move. Of course, we want Wash to be healthy. He's got an option for next year. So I don't think it means that he's not on this team next year. But we certainly want a healthy Ron Washington and for him to be healthy for those that he loves and those that love him.
Yeah, you mentioned the option. Mike, is this a subtle nudge in the direction of, hey, maybe it's time to call it a career. Maybe it's time to call it a season, or, at least hang your hat as far as being the Angels manager. It kind of makes you wonder, just with all of the, obviously he's got to have his privacy in regard to what the health condition is, but there has been some speculation, especially across Angels social media, as if this is is this a gentle way of getting Wash out the door? And is that even something that they wanted to do?
Sure.
Right. Is this something that they would want from Ron Washington to say, you know what, we need someone else, but we're not going to fire you. Right. And so kind of makes you wonder, and maybe that can be a different conversation for a different time, especially as we continue to get into Ray Montgomery's tenure as the manager. Interesting that Montgomery didn't take over when Madden was fired, considering, this is kind of, well, I mean, it's about that time of year, right, where Madden got fired, and then, Nevin took over. And so, yeah, it's just an interesting timing all the way around. So let's talk about our fifth takeaway, and this is what we tweeted from Locked On Angels. The offense showed up. The pitching didn't. Not very often that happens. Write it off and get right tomorrow night. So let's do that, and we'll move on to Saturday night's game in segment 2. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, the Angels play some bad defense and lose on Sunday. We've got our 5 takeaways for Saturday and Sunday. We'll get to those takeaways coming right up.
Summer sports are in full swing, so whether it's baseball under the lights or it's golf on the green or maybe it's high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every moment more and every moment exciting. And if you're already following the action, why not make it a little bit more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are maybe getting sunburned at the beach. You can use FanDuel for all sorts of things. I use it to track some of my favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's so easy to use. There's fast payouts, and it makes regular season games that are not fun to watch, like Sunday's game against the Nationals, it makes it kind of a must-watch for you because you can win some money. So place a bet, maybe combine it with a same-game parlay, and you can ride into the 9th inning with some more cash and some more winnings with FanDuel. It's going to be fun to be a part of FanDuel, so you should be a part of it. If you're new customers can get just $5, bet $5, and you can win $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Mike, Saturday, the Angels ended up winning this one 8-2, and it was the kind of game that you thought you would have more of this weekend. And it was, I don't want to say a complete team effort, but there were certainly people who came up clutch in specific moments in this game. But let's start at the beginning with our first takeaway. That's Kyle Hendricks pitched well and was pulled very early in this one. He went 5 innings, gave up 5 hits. That's a typical Hendricks quality. However, just one run, 5 strikeouts, and only 74 pitches. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, Hendricks was spot on Saturday. Literally, he was hitting his spots. Wherever Ohapi put the target, Hendricks hit the target. And he painted the corners. All of his outs were on pitches that were on the corners. All of his hits given up were on pitches that missed the corner, and even more over the middle of the plate. So really, it was kind of black and white there. Anything on the corners that he dotted, he was getting outs on. He even had a shutdown inning, something the Angels couldn't pull off the night before. But then he was pulled after 5 and 74 pitches. Was Ray Montgomery doing the analytical thing here, Mike? Was it the right decision? What do you say?
It felt like it was an analytical decision. I was frustrated with it because you're at 74 pitches through 5, and he wasn't struggling at all. Like, he really wasn't struggling at any point in this game. And Hendricks looked like he was ready to do the 6th inning. In fact, he even gave an interview afterwards, and he said, I was ready to do that, but Ray's the manager, and I trust him. Now, here's why it might be more of an analytics move, because Hendricks, first time through the order, he's pretty good, 254, 302, and a 424 slash line. Second time through the order, not so good, 377, 397, and a 672 slash line. Look at the third time through the order, John. A 667 batting average, a 721 on base, and a 1.22 slugging percentage. So they are crushing him when he gets through that third time through the order. Another stat that I thought was interesting that kind of counteracts that, in the 6th inning, he's pitched into the 6th inning 11 times this season. He's got a 2.16 ERA with a 1.20 whip. So, John, do you think this was the right move? I know they won. I know they came back, scored a lot of runs. But do you think this was the right move?
In the context of the whole weekend, I really think you have to consider how the bullpen was used, right? And especially on Sunday, because, again, we had a short start from a starter, and that was Jack Johanowitz, who certainly could have gone deeper into the game, and we'll talk about that in segment 3. But the fact is, there's a delicate balance of how long you let the starter go and try to keep yourself in the game versus how much of the bullpen are you going to use? And there were a lot of guys unavailable, Zephyr John being one of them, having gone 2 nights in a row. I think Sam Bachman was unavailable on Sunday. So, yeah, just interesting to see this play out. Those are odd stats because, that third time through the order, but then in context of the 6th inning, having a 2.16 ERA, a 1.20 whip, kind of makes me think those 6th inning situations are when he's cruising, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get to a certain part of the order at a specific part of the game, meaning you probably had a lot of quick innings, 1, 2, 3 innings, maybe a 1-2 hit, then an out inning, right? So it really all depends on how quickly he gets through that order the second time. And Wash is somebody who's going to let him finish out that kind of stuff and try to get it done. Doesn't seem like we're getting that from Ray Montgomery. Seems like he's very by the numbers, which is, I was saying maybe he's not on the level of a Brad Ausmus, but Mike, in the last few instances that we've seen this, I think he's borderline.
He's teetering.
Yeah, he's not gonna have an opener. That's for sure. Remember how many openers we had that year?
Mm-hmm.
But he's certainly riding that line of being a very analytical manager, especially when it comes to these numbers.
Second takeaway, John, is just an affirmation of something that you've talked about with Ryan Zephyr John. He needs to throw the 4-seam fastball so much more often.
Thank you. Good grief.
He gave up a run in the 7th inning on a walk and a steal and then a single, and the reason was because he wasn't throwing the 4-seam fastball, at least to start the inning. He threw the cutter way too often and not the 4-seam, and he should throw that 4-seam, and here's why. He went cutter, slider, and then 4-seam to the first batter, Lyle, and he walked him. Then threw a cutter and a slider and gave up a single. Then the third batter, he threw a slider and then 2 4-seam fastballs, and he struck out Jacob Young. Final batter, C.J. Abrams, he threw 2 cutters, and Abrams flew out. But when he threw the 4-seam fastball, it kept the batter off balance, and I think it matches the cutter really well, and it matches his off-speed stuff. He just doesn't seem confident in that 4-seam. At least that was my read. What was your read?
Well, you have to play your other pitches off the 4-seam. That's what I don't understand. To me, it seems like the cutter is, that's the base pitch. That's the one that he really relies on. And to be fair, I'm looking at his numbers from last year in the short stint we got with him. He threw the cutter the most. He threw it 46.2% of the time. This year, he's throwing it 30.5% of the time, and the 4-seam is right behind it at 29%. But I'm looking at last year, and he threw the 4-seam a whole lot more. Mike, the big pitch that's taken up a lot of the pitching wealth, so to speak, is the slider. He's throwing that 21.4% of the time, where last year he only threw 3 of them it was the sweeper that he was using. So last year it was cutter, four seam, sweeper. That was his repertoire. Now he's got a 4-pitch mix with the slider and the sweeper. And you might be asking yourself, what's the difference? Well, the sweeper is a whole lot slower and it's got a lot more horizontal break than a slider. But to me, a slider at 88.5 miles an hour versus a cutter that averages 90.5 miles an hour, that's not enough of a separation of speeds. And when you get that close together, those are very similar pitches. They end up both looking like a cutter, especially if there's a lot of mileage on that slider. So all that to say, I think that he just needs to build his at-bats off of the 4-seam, then play the cutter, then play the slider, then throw in the sweeper. But I think your base pitch 110% has to be that 4-seam fastball that you're throwing at nearly 100 miles an hour every time.
Third takeaway is the Angels offense finally woke up in the bottom of the 7th inning. It started with a Mike Trout home run, his 13th, and he's just 9 away from 400.
Who's
in
not
his career.
clutch? Come
How
on.
about that guy? How about that guy, right? I know that there's clutch conversations, right? But here's the interesting thing about Trout. He had been 4 for 36 in those types of situations this year with 10 walks. The situation was a RBI tying the game or giving the Angels lead in the 7th inning or later. He's really struggled with that this year. We've noticed that. Last 15 games, John, he's hitting 240, but he's got a 424 on base percentage, drawing a lot of walks and making good contact. And when he makes good contact, it's been better for him. I know that the not clutch narrative is always going to follow him because he does need to come through in those moments. He pinch hit on Sunday and fouled out, and that was frustrating. I know. Now following Mike Trout's home run, Taylor Ward doubled, and then Joe Adell singled, and then the next two batters, O'Hoppe and Neto, they struck out and they popped out. So it looked like it was going to be one of those innings. But then the new clutch guy is Christian Moore, and he gave the Angels the lead with a 2-out, 2-strike single to left. The pitch was up. Moore adjusted. His swing was level. He chopped at that thing and slapped the ball to left field. Now, we noticed something that Christian Moore had a leg kick through his first 40 at-bats. But since then, he's found success with more of a toe tap. Go back and take a look at a few of his at-bats this weekend compared to what he was doing the previous weekend. Had a leg kick. Now he's doing the toe tap. Johnny, he hit the walk-off home run a few games ago on Saturday night. Actually, last week with the toe tap. He did it again on Saturday night when he hit that single. And that was a beautiful moment, right? And that was, yay, we got the lead, we broke the tie, but then the game got busted open by. Am I reading this right?
Hold on, I gotta clean my screen here. I think it's wrong. That's like Kevin Newman.
Newman, like we'll celebrate him here, and then we're gonna trash him in the next segment. So why don't you celebrate him right here? Yeah,
he busted the game open with a 3-run home run, gave the Angels the lead. Long overdue, right?
Yeah,
we're sitting on, June 29th right now, or should say June 30th. And this was, June 28th when it happened, but, the guy is capable of so much more, and that's why they signed him. But the problem is that he has just not lived up to anything that he's done in his career. And you wonder if it's a lack of playing time. He seemed to feel like it was, but at the end of the day, he's always been a guy off the bench. He's always been somebody who hasn't started every game. So it really makes you wonder, where the issue lies with him. But it was a pitch down and in, and he just, yanked it right into left field. And so more of that, please, Kevin Newman, and less of what you did on Sunday. But after Newman's home run, Rengifo doubled, Shronwell walked, Trout walked, Taylor Ward walked, and then a run scored on that. The Angels came into the 7th inning with 1 run, 1 walk, and 2 hits. And then in the 7th inning, they had 3 walks, 6 hits, and scored 6 runs, which included 4 extra base hits, 2 home runs, and 2 doubles. They faced 1 pitcher through 6 innings and 3 in the bottom of the 7th. The Angels added 1 more run in the bottom of the 8th, thanks to a Gustavo Campero home run. Can I just say, the guy's a switch hitter. He plays the outfield very well. He's very fast. Can we stop starting Lamont Wade Jr. in right field and give Gustavo Campero more at bats, please? That's something I would like.
Analytics say that Lamont. Hey, fourth takeaway is Zach Neto didn't start in this game, and we know that he hurt his shoulder last Tuesday sliding into second base. He's been working on sliding with his feet. He said he's practicing that, but then I love this. At the end of the day, when I'm running, it's whatever the first thing that pops into my head.
Yeah,
that's what's going to happen. It's going to be instinct. Now, he said that he probably won't start and play until Tuesday's game, but he did pinch hit on Sunday, and he did play shortstop for the rest of the game.
Did you see the way he was stretching out too? I got my back scratcher here. It was like, he's like, look, everyone, my shoulder's fine.
Right. Or he's about to pop that sucker out. So be very careful,
that.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Johnny, fifth takeaway, bullpen was better on Saturday than they were on Friday. Combination of Fermin, Zephyr-John, Detmers, and Bachman closed out the game. They went 4 innings combined, gave up 4 hits, 1 run, walked 2, struck out 2. Fermin's here, by the way, because they DFA'd Hector Neris. And Ray Montgomery just said he did great for us. He was great for the young kids. But Fermin is a part of our future, and Neris had to be let go. He was the odd man out, and unfortunately, that's just part of the game. Somebody needed to be replaced.
Yeah, and he doesn't have any options because he's a veteran, and they needed a fresh arm, and so that obviously he's going to be the first one to go and be sent down / DFA'd. I'm excited that Fermin is there, and of course the bullpen looked very good on Saturday night, something that we wouldn't see later on Sunday, and we'll get to that in just a minute.
This game on Sunday was really frustrating. Angels lose 7-4. They shouldn't have lost this game. Bottom line, shouldn't have lost this game. And I'm not just saying that as a fan. I'm just saying that as somebody who watches baseball. And I'm like, that was a pathetic showing. The first takeaway from the game, lineup was different. No Trout, no Neto. On Trout being out, Montgomery said it was a good time for him to be out. I want to give him a little bit of a break. Trout did enter and pinch hit in the 6th inning. He popped out. Felt like an early time for Trout to be pinch hitting because they had opportunities later in the game for him to be pinch hitting. I guess we can get into that in just a moment. Since his return on May 30th, he's started 26 of the 28 games, all at DH. John, this actually sounds a bit deceiving. He's hitting .290 with 4 home runs and an .857 OPS entering yesterday's game. It doesn't feel like that, but I guess if you look at over the combination of he had a hot run for a bit where he was hitting some home runs, that was, I think, where those numbers come from. Joe Adell hitting cleanup. I like that move. Travis d'Arnaud was DH, and O'Hoppe was behind the plate. And the offense got started in the top of the first after a Shawnuel walk. Taylor Ward doubled, and Shawnuel scored. Ward had 3 doubles in this game, and then struck out looking on 3 pitches in an inning when we really needed him later
Taylor
on.
Ward giveth and Taylor Ward taketh away.
He is a guess hitter, right? And so he had 3 doubles in this game. His 3rd double came in the 6th inning, and then following that double, Joe Adell, he hit a RBI single to right field. I love that. John, his stats in June are just off the charts. And I'm going to let you share that because you've been the Joe Adell celebrator and cheerleader so far on this show.
Yeah, in June, he's got a 284 average, a 364 on base percentage, and a 670 slugging, 11 home runs, 18 RBIs, 26 hits, and 89 at-bats. So Joe Adell in the month of June, get to know each other well because now we're turning the calendar to July, but we still want Joe Adell to continue this momentum into the dog days of summer, please. Now, Christian Moore followed that up with a 2-out RBI. Here's a great note from Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register on Christian Moore. He said, entering yesterday, Christian Moore is 0 for 17 with 9 strikeouts when the Angels are leading. He is 9 for 30, which is a 300 average, when it's tied or the Angels are losing. So he's been Mr. Clutch lately. In fact, Sam Blum followed that up with a tweet that said, Christian Moore on this homestand, a game-tying home run in the 7th on June 20th, a game-tying home run in the 8th on June 24th, and also the walk-off 2-run home run in the 10th on the 24th, a tie-breaking hit on the 7th, in the 7th on June 28th, and then a tie-breaking hit in the 6th inning on Sunday.
Second takeaway, Jack Kohanowitz, he looked good, and then he just didn't look good. He started strong and then got into trouble in the top of the 5th. He walked the leadoff guy, Milas, and he doesn't have a hit yet this season. And so he's walking a guy who's not hitting well, and then followed that with a double to Young. That's when Ray Montgomery came out and got him. It was quick. It was similar to Saturday night, but I think this one felt right because Kohanowitz, when he gets into those situations where it's runners at second and third, inevitably those runners come around and score because he still hasn't figured out the strikeout pitch. And yesterday just didn't have it. Just didn't feel like he was able in that 5th inning specifically, just didn't feel like he was going to dominate at all and wasn't confident in any of his pitches. Now, his ERA jumps almost a full run the third time through the order, so it may have been an analytical move here. He went 4, gave up 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 2 Ks, only 63 pitches. You mentioned this, John, but I want to bring it up again. If the strategy is to remove your pitchers before the third time through the order, you are asking this bullpen to be better than they've already been. Now, last season, remember, June 17th on, one of the best bullpens in baseball, a 2.69 ERA. John, since May 19th, they have a 2.79 ERA, which is third best in baseball, third best in the AL at least. You're asking the bullpen to do a lot if you're going to take your pitchers out at 60 pitches, 70 pitches. And I don't know if that Hendricks move was the smart move. This one might have been the smart move, but this is why you can't take Kyle Hendricks out of the game if he's dominating, because you never know what the guy the next day is going to do.
Yeah, and you use 4 pitchers on Saturday night, and then you had to turn to, Connor Brogdon to finish this game, essentially. And, it's funny when you watch Kyle Finnegan do his thing, and he goes 3 innings to finish out this game for the Nationals. I know, right? Yeah, and we talked about that all offseason. But, yeah, Mike, I really think that if you're going to ask the bullpen to be even better than they've already done, that's asking a lot, because a 2.79 ERA, third best in the American League, that's fantastic. So I don't know why you would mess with the formula, because I feel like the formula was working. There are certainly moments, like Tyler Anderson getting pulled when he got pulled.
Yeah.
I got that. I understood that. It feels like to me that Ray Montgomery's hook is almost disciplinary, right? Like you said, Kwanowicz, you shouldn't have walked that guy because he doesn't have a hit this season, and now you got runners on second and third, so you're done, bud. You know, and it's just like, yeah, but you kind of need him to go a little bit more than just 4 innings, my friend. Yeah. So that's the balance that I'm struggling with right now. I'm not going to sit here and defend Ray Montgomery, because who cares, right? But what I'm trying to say is I'm a little bit concerned about if this is going to be the trajectory of the Angels moving forward, because it's a little bit scary. Don't mess with a winning combination that you've had so far this season.
Third takeaway, strong defense, and then really bad decisions. The strong defense, top of the 5th, runners at second and third. Fermin on the mound gets Abrams to ground out to short with the infield in. Newman makes a great backhanded play, throws to first base, gets the guy out. Later on, Shonowell gets a ground ball off the bat of Garcia Jr. with the bases loaded. And this is where it wasn't good. He made a really bad decision. Should have thrown home. Instead, he tags first and then throws home. And Ohapi's not even waiting on the plate. Like, he's not standing there guarding the plate or standing like a first baseman on the plate. He just kind of fumbles the ball. Then another runner comes in, and luckily he tags the runner out. Replays were inconclusive, so the call stands, and then the Nationals manager got thrown out. And so that was just a bonehead play. And then there was a really great play from Christian Moore. He had a glove flip ball where he threw it to first base on a really quick move, getting a runner out at first base. And then there was the biggest defensive misplay of the game. It happened in the top of the 7th, John. This was super frustrating. And I think this is really what cost them the game.
Yeah, Zephyr John got the first 2 batters in the top of the 7th, walked the third batter, got CJ Abrams to pop up to short, which would have ended the inning, but Kevin Newman lost the ball in the sun. It drops in, a run scored, and the outfield just stood there and watched Kevin Newman struggle and didn't even have a play for him. Yeah,
you got that, bud?
Can you see it? Can you see it? Yeah. So that was the issue, Mike, and then that led into how this game ended. Our 4th takeaway, bottom of the 7th, Rengifo hits a 1-out triple to right. He scores on a wild pitch. Kenley Jansen comes in the 9th. In a 4-3 game to try to get the save. Lyle reached on a double, but that ball was hit to Shonowell, eats him up, and goes down the right field line. Somebody said if Jansen had just done his job, and it's like, well, he did, but Nolan Shonowell didn't do his job. So, yeah, that was frustrating. So it was his first blown save, because Jacob Young followed that with a single, and Lyle was bunted over to third. Young hits that single that ties the game. Top of the 11th, the National scores 3 runs off Connor Brogdon, all little dinks and dunks, but that CJ Abrams triple is really what sealed the deal. So, this is something that was affirmed here. The fact that, the Angels are pitching all to the Nationals' strengths. And a good example of that is Drew Mealis thrives on a changeup away, and the stats back that up. And where did Brogdon throw his changeup? Up and away. And so that was hit for the double to left. So just, if we're going to be analytical in one department, we need to be analytical in these matchups as well and go, hey, maybe not throw that pitch to that particular guy, right?
Yeah. And speaking of analytics, the fifth takeaway, we're not going to play small ball, right? We're not going to butt people over.
Gosh.
We're just not going to do that. I mean, it was ridiculous. 9th and 10th inning, they had an opportunity to do that. I think the analytics would have said to do that, especially when you have Lamont Wade Jr. up there in the 9th inning with Christian Moore at first base and no outs. Bunt him over. Then bottom 10, Neto's at second base, your best base runner with Rengifo up there, and they don't bunt him over. Now, Ray Montgomery said, well, he's kind of been on a heater lately. Shut up. And bunt him over, right? Like, you have to win this game.
Yeah.
You have
the analytics don't like bunting, Mike. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, throw it out.
Yeah.
And where's Mike Scioscia, right? Like, I mean, that's the stuff that just frustrates me. You have to win this game. And you didn't win this game because you refused to play small ball and be a complete team. You decided that you were going to run with the numbers. You decided you're going to swing for the fin. It was just this loss for me was on the coaching staff mainly because they just didn't play to win this game.
Yeah. Nationals played small ball and
they
look
did
at the results, right?
Yep.
And they got tons of guys who can run the bases. They had to walk James Wood 4 times intentionally because he came up to bat in critical moments every single time he was coming up to bat. There were runners on, the game was on the line. And so they just created those situations for themselves where the Angels didn't. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. You can find myself there along with my incredible co-host. Every game, every night, all season long, local analysis on a national scale. You can find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube. Join us live or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, get in the comments section. Tell us all your thoughts about this weekend series. The Angels can't break 500. That's their glass ceiling, apparently. Mike, what do we have on deck for Tuesday's show since we have a day off, or the Halos have a day off on Monday?
We're going to talk about why the Angels play up to the good teams and play down to the bad teams. There's actually a statement. Familiar. There's a statement that one of the players made that brought good clarity. And so we're going to tease that out and work that through tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right. We hope you come back and join us for that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here, everybody. And we'll see you back here on Tuesday. Play up, play down. Come on.
I don't believe you.